You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 253, How She Monetized Her Heartbreak with Yasmin Bahrami. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful Bravehearts. How is everyone doing? I am so excited to be here today. You guys, this is a podcast episode that is a long time coming. I don't even know where to begin with it other than to say it's very special to me. We have a special guest today. Her name's Yasmin. Love her. And we worked together probably like 5-ish years ago. I can't even remember the year, but she was 19 when we worked together. She's 24 now. And it just blows my mind in terms of the relationship that we built through working together. And it kind of started out actually as I think you actually came to me for coaching, but then as we were talking, I ended up hiring her on to help me with marketing and social media at the time, but we still continued to, I coached her, she helped me with marketing. It was a very dynamic relationship where I just love it so much. It just meant the world to me. It was so fun having her in my life in that way. And so we've kept in touch throughout the years. She ended up moving on, doing bigger and better things in her bigger and better life. And we've kept in touch. And so we had a conversation recently where like, you should really come on the podcast and we should talk about a lot of the things that she has some wisdom and knowledge. She's someone who, yes, is 24, but I feel like I've never actually told you this, but I just feel like you're beyond your years. I just feel like when I'm speaking to her, I'm speaking to a wise woman.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, and so it's just so fun. And I think today's conversation will be super fun and helpful for other individuals who are going through heartbreak, wanting to know what to do, how to build their bigger and better life, all of that. So thank you, Yasmin, for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited. And why don't you just start out with giving us the background of your breakup story?
Yeah, so I was 19 when I reached out to you, and actually in that time of my life, I was going to therapy for a few years and looking to work with a coach instead because I kept finding myself asking my therapist to give me homework after sessions and kind of wanting like a relationship where they were more telling me what to do or at least giving me something concrete in the sessions instead of me just talking at them because it wasn't helping. And at that time, I had been on and off with somebody for what, like 2 years? I don't, it was so long ago. But I just was in a dynamic where there was an on and off relationship, and it was at that point becoming such a problem. Um, and I actually very randomly, I remember somebody posted a song on their story and I typed it into my Spotify and it had like the same words somehow as how to get over your ex. um, and I ended up not listening to the song and just going on her podcast and listening. And I just love the way you laid out things. Like, I think I have a type A brain where I need like step one, step two, step three. So I was like, you know what? This like seems like crazy that I came across this. Let me reach out. She's a life coach. It's what I've been looking for. Let me see if this is something I can take on. And we got on the meeting, and to be honest, I couldn't afford it at the time. I was 19 and I was paying for my own therapy, but it worked out so synchronously because yeah, you emailed me right after and you were like, I think that we should work together. So there was kind of an exchange of services going on. And then after I finished coaching with you, um, we just kept working together. But to kind of just because you asked about my breakup story, you know, there wasn't something I didn't necessarily have a breakup story because it wasn't one big thing. It was like 10, 20 mini breakups, mini get back togethers. And what I learned in coaching was that it wasn't even about the person I was on and off with, but a pattern that I created in my life where like I even at 19 somehow accumulated these like a set of relationships that were ambiguous enough that there could be a nature where it was on and off without getting deeply involved. And the reason, really why I was attached to this one particular person is because I had attached so much meaning to my identity based on, my relationship to them. It was like kind of my first big relationship. And I think I was really stuck on seeing who I was and how I was through his eyes, and kind of had this like relationship to my ambition where I was, like trying to level up essentially, and putting energy in success to kind of reconcile my ego. I hope that makes sense the way I explained it. But um, the coaching, I think a lot of your clients have experienced this, but you go in thinking like your issues that you can't get over somebody, and kind of midway, you're like, wait, it's really this story that I'm carrying around with me. And it's really about the way I see myself. And um, as soon as you change the way that you see yourself, or at least like, I don't even consider it changing, but just realize, the way that you're framing your breakup or a relationship that even is still in your life, your attachment to the person dissipates. And that is what ultimately happened. Yeah.
So good. Oh, I love it. And such a great intro. I don't know if the listeners can hear this, but Yasmin's very poetic, very like artistic. The way that she just speaks, it gives me chills. Like even in just you explaining that, it gives me chills. So let's talk about I just want to talk about your bigger and better life and how you came from that experience and turned all of this really into art. There's just something to me about taking pain, turning it into power, and using it in a way where it's like an artistic, creative expression. So can you tell people what you do now in terms of like the brand that you've built, the art that you've created from Heartbreak?
Yeah. So, obviously I worked, for you in social media. So I always had this notion, like since I was a teenager, that I wanted to carve out a space of my own online. And I grew up in the suburbs, and there wasn't really a lot of, there was none. There was kind of no creative outlet to like a community. There was no community to join where I felt like I could express like kind of, that side of myself. But the internet existed. And so that's kind of my relationship to the online world. I had like a Tumblr, I had a Wattpad, I had a fan page on Instagram when I was, a preteen. And um, I just knew in a pretty vague way, but still knew that, the internet was going to be where I could express what what was coming through me that I had nowhere to put my whole life. And I didn't know how that was going to look like. So I was just taking jobs in social media, really learning as I go about marketing. Um, and finally, I think this was towards the end of 2020. Um, I had an idea to create a clothing brand that was kind of just a front facing aesthetic vehicle to carry messaging. That sounded really complicated, but all I mean to say was I wanted to create a space online where I could kind of have a blog persona, but thought the best way to get people to pay attention would be through selling clothes because, especially during COVID, it was like kind of a time where like you would see so many people still doing clothing hauls, even with nowhere to go. And you could see like the consumer behavior was just very like anything aesthetic, like it just never goes out of style. Like people never stop caring, including myself, even when we're locked up in our houses. So I was like, you know what? Like, if I can get people to pay attention, this can be how. And I just had the vague idea of like, let me collaborate with other female visual artists and I'll write what goes on the shirt, but since I can't draw, they'll draw it, they'll design it, etc. So I came out with a few pieces that were collaboration and kind of started from that angle of like, this is a haven for female creators online. And I was in college, so I launched it. There was like some attention where we were kind of, I had like a little boost of okay, this is working, but ultimately I wasn't working on promoting it because I was still working two other jobs and I was in college. And then the next year, like January 2022, I reached out to somebody I was mutuals with on social media. And we created a collaboration piece that was a entry I wrote on my notes app on my phone, kind of an unsent love letter to an ex, and took my words and she wrote it very beautifully in ink and made kiss marks all over it. And we printed that on a tank top and I posted it and it went viral. And that really just honed in a audience that kind of innately was similar to me because of course like I wrote that. So there's resonance there. And it was just this time on the internet, especially TikTok, where like they were really pushing small creators and they were really rewarding consistency. And I was posting like crazy and just things in that were thematic of romanticism and longing and kind of the place that finds in girlhood. If there's anything we can all relate on, I think it's just like thinking about a boy. And it did well because, you know, I think like the saying is like sex sells, but really it's like desire sells, or the idea that you are desirable if you own blank or if you're in the category of blank. And it kind of like took form because my messaging was just like the unforgettable girl, the one that got away, kind of what everybody wants to be in a way. And there's truth to it too. So I think that the genuine nature of it just hit. And that's what I've been doing since I've been kind of, really developing the narrative of the coming of age themes and girlhood with, you know, romanticism in that umbrella.
I love it so much. I literally get chills thinking about it. Everyone has to go check it out. We'll link it in the bio, of course, but it just it gives me chills because I even remember you doing my social media and you're so good at aesthetic, you're so good at your words. There's something with your words. I literally have not read content that hits as like deep and in an articulate way as I read your words. I'm obsessed. Are you going to write a
Oh,
book?
thank you so much. Thank you. I am definitely gonna write many books in my life because I mean, to like, because I was talking about the beginning of all of this and my creative expression that I was kind of referring to when I was a preteen and that I didn't feel like I had an outlet for was writing. And in everything I've done, it's like gone back to writing, back to writing, back to writing, even in social media. Like working for you, it was, you know, copywriting in the sense of I was trying to illuminate your message in a way that resonated, and the kind of that like it's a alchemy of, especially when it's somebody else's message, it's like, how do I dress this up? How do I make somebody look? And yeah, it's that combination though of aesthetic and message, because I I just think like people pay attention to beautiful things, and beauty is a very real merit in life. And that doesn't have to be a superficial thing. It can be like, like if somebody in a Vogue Beauty Secrets video tells you to buy a face wash and their skin is beautiful, like you're gonna buy it. But then also if you watch a beautiful film on the themes of coming of age, or, that's inspiring in some way, it's like it was inspiring to you because of the way that they dressed it up with the cinematography and the colors and the world that's built. So I've always really understood that power, because that's how I got to listen to things. And I writing for me is like the that's like that's kind of my motive of like, how can I get people to pay attention to what I'm saying? It's kind of self-indulgent, but it comes from a good place, I
I
think.
love that. I think it's so
Yeah.
important, though. It's so important. And fun little fact, if you've ever heard me talk about the 5-day training and we talk about 5 months of healing in 5 days, that slogan, that tagline actually came from Yasmin, which is just so
Yeah. Yeah, I love a catchy lyric. I love like something that just can stick to a wall like that.
so fun. So I really want people who are listening, I want Bravehearts who are listening to this episode and hearing you speak. I want them to be and feel inspired to take whatever their artistic, creative talent is, even if they don't think they're a creative person. I do believe that everyone has some sort of
Yeah.
creative power. What would you say, like, to someone who's going through heartbreak right now, who's going through a breakup or a divorce and really struggling? How, like, what would you tell them, or any tips or advice that you'd give them and taking that hurt or that pain and producing some sort of art, or taking that and doing something with their hands with it? Does that make sense? Is there anything
Yeah, totally.
you have to offer?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the things that you should do often sound like whispers, and they sound irrelevant, because they're not maybe as loud or obvious as other answers. So just to give an example, like I think that, because this is a bigger conversation about, you know, being fulfilled in your life, and fulfillment is like the ultimate form of being healed, right? It's not, fulfillment isn't like living a perfect life. It's just that you are watering the right plant, at the right times with the right amount, and that's yourself, right? So pay attention to the things that in childhood put you in a flow state. And um again, for me, that was writing. Like that was just always, it's thematic, it's like, it's much like a movie where you can watch how a character gravitates to a certain theme, and we have an arc, right, that we watch and we follow, and we see the first act, second act, third act. I i don't think that's completely um a, a fantasy. I mean, it's just the only thing that's, distorted about that is the time frame, an hour and a half. But like, if you pay attention to the things that you did in childhood, even if it's not, a specific art, but maybe you were always bringing people together in some way. Maybe in Girl Scouts, like you tended to be like the loudest one, or maybe you were the quietest one, and you would go in the corner and tie leaves together and make, like little bracelets, or, very seemingly futile things, are the things that you should invest in and listen to. And you don't have to be, like, to kind of answer the question of like, I feel like when you are heartbroken, there's this sense of like, what do I do with all of the investment and the love and the attention that I had for this other person? Like you almost feel frozen. And the answer is pretty quiet, it's like, well, what have you kind of been curious about? It might not make sense, but it's like you will do yourself justice by listening to a whisper, and don't intimidate yourself by being like, I need to find my passion right now, or I need to start a project, or you don't start with that. Just kind of, you know, listen to the thing that sounds irrelevant but feels a little good in your chest. It's very subtle. That's why I'm trying not to use big words. It's just kind of this inclination. Um, and just see how that unravels. Yeah.
I love that so much. So good. I appreciate it. Yasmin, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would love to chat about or provide words of wisdom to any of the Bravehearts who are listening here today?
Um, well, I just think like, you know, it's as much as, creating something ultimately is the highest form of, they say like the highest form of healing is creation. And if you can make art out of something that felt ugly, like that's kind of the ultimate expression of coming out the other side, right? But also, I think, I mean, for me, and I don't know how many people are going to resonate with this, but just be wary of like ambition being a band-aid. I said this in the beginning, but so much of the like icky feelings in heartbreak and the devastation isn't even about the other person, but about what you're making it mean about you. Like, if you were with somebody that you felt so validated that, oh my God, they were, interested in me. Like I kind of have had this pattern of the guys that I've seen being, the top charmer and like the one that all the girls are enamored with. And then they choose me. And then it's like so validating in the moment. And this is all subconscious and something in retrospect. So I know I sound like I know it now, but you probably might, whoever's listening, it's like, that's why coaching is great. That's why journaling is great. It's because there's an underbelly, right? But anyway, like no matter how many things I have on my checklist or under my belt of my success, um, that's not the thing that fixes it. Like that's great for your ego. Your ego's super bruised after a breakup. That's great, but that's not the what like that's not going to fill the void. The ultimate conclusion is that this person didn't hand you something that they can take away. When somebody loves you, I think you realize what is lovable about you, but you realize it. You don't discover, or nothing is added to you. It was already inside of you. And um, when that ends, we feel like it was never valid and it was taken away. But, it's just kind of people's jobs in your life to pass through, and you can't make it mean things about yourself. And I just wanted to say that because I didn't want to like say that, if you like build a business and you're successful on the outside, that's not your cure. Um, make them from a genuine place, and know that, maybe, I don't know, even if your goal is to like get your dream body or whatever, just level up after a breakup, the glow up. It's like, do all of those things. And I think the angst after a breakup is great because it will push you to that. But, the real conclusion is just that you're fine. Like nobody figured you out and figured out you were unlovable, and that's not what happened. Just decorate your life for yourself. Everything that you say, Dorothy.
I
But
love
yeah.
it. I mean, it's really, it's so true though. Like you can go after all of these accolades and accomplishments and all of that, which I think is really what I did in 2016, right?
Hmm.
I really went after everything. I was like, I'm gonna get my revenge body. We're gonna travel. We're gonna do all these crazy cool, considerably epic things. But the story about myself never changed throughout that. And
Hmm.
that's
Totally.
right? So that's why it's like a year and a half
What
later.
was your story? What was like kind of your narrative?
Yeah, my biggest narrative was, he never loved me, which equates to I'm not lovable, right? I'm
Hmm.
unlovable. And so that was it, when I realized thoughts create feelings and those thoughts are optional, it really blew my mind because it's like, of course, it doesn't really matter how much time has passed. If my stories didn't change, my feelings also haven't changed. So now instead of focusing on all of these accomplishments and these accolades, thinking that those were going to make me think and feel differently about myself, which they did not, and they
Yeah,
still
no.
don't. Like, I think that's the
Yeah.
crazy part is like, you and I have known each other now for about 5 years. And so it's just so crazy because even when you and I first started working together, there was still a part of me that believed like I will get to a point where I will just never feel shitty about myself. I will
Hmm.
never, right? Like I will get to that place. And I still felt like external things could bring me certain feelings, even though logically I knew it didn't. And now that I've like done accomplishment after accomplishment after accomplishment, and I still experience the 50-50 in life, I'm like, oh my God, like what they were saying the whole
Right.
time is really true. And so it just
It's like people get famous only to tell you that like fame isn't all cracked up to be like, but and we all know it by now. We know that like fame and money doesn't fix it, but we have to get there to be able to tell everybody that, oh yeah, they're right.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I very much agree with you, and I'm really glad that you're ending today's episode with saying that of like, yes, let's go create art out of pain. I think it's beautiful. I think serving the world with your artistic talent or your creativity or the messaging that you have to offer the world is so profound and can touch so many people's hearts in so many different
Mm.
ways. And I think that's beautiful, but don't do it from this place of I need this accomplishment to feel better. Like you still need to do the underlying work that I talk about all in this
Yeah.
podcast of changing the stories you have about yourself, what you're making this breakup mean about you, reducing desire and attachment. Like all of that work still also has to happen. But in the meantime, you can be doing something with your hands and you can be
Yeah, you're
creating.
restless. Like you're restless, you have to do something. Like
Yeah.
it's just that, and that is its own thing. And in creation also it is cathartic. We're like, there's vulnerability there where you can uncover some of the stories. Just trust it. Just trust your curiosity for sure. But yeah, it's what you're saying. Like just the work needs to be done. And I cannot like even like coaching. I'm just such a big, like, I believe in coaching so much more than cognitive therapy, or most forms of like talk therapy or whatever, because you kind of have to talk to your brain like that to figure shit out. Like, um, you know, so many times when you end up actually asking yourself the question that you're like afraid to, like, why am I unlovable? And you write it out on paper and it's like, this is so stupid.
But you
So
have to see
yeah,
it on
you have to
paper.
see
Like
it. Yeah.
if you just try to do that stuff in your brain, it's like so different than actually writing it on paper or saying it
Yeah.
out loud to another coach. Like when
Totally.
you say it out loud to the coach, you're like, I can see it. I can see it now.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you
Love
so
it.
much, Jasmine. I really appreciate you. I love you. Honestly, I love you from the bottom of my heart, like on so
I
many
love you
levels.
from the bottom of my heart. You are in every career story I tell. Like, it just makes so much sense that I started my journey with a breakup coach. Like, you are just the best.
I love you. It's so fun because I feel like, I don't know, we have such a fun relationship where I see you as a peer and as a colleague. And at the same time, I felt like I got to be a mentor in a way, which
Yeah,
is just so
you
fun.
totally were. I was literally 19. Like, of course,
So I don't know.
I
It
know.
just it also, I mean, I talk about this a lot on that podcast, but for those of you who don't know, I've wanted to be a mother. And so there's also this
Oh,
mothering aspect to that as well, like with the
yes.
mentoring, which I don't mean to come off as weird or anything,
No,
but
totally. Like, totally. I I've felt that too. And like if I get to do this for someone younger than me, that's just like that's like real fulfillment for me. And congratulations on your baby.
thank you.
And it's
So
just so
excited.
beautiful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Yasmin. I appreciate you. I know everyone listening appreciates you. We love your story. We're going to share all of your goodness and amazingness and art with the world. I can't wait. So be sure to check her out. Where can people find you? Can you let everyone know where to
Right.
find
Okay. So my brand's Instagram is Moonkissed Collective, like Sunkissed. And the website is moonkissedcollective.com. We are posting more, kind of just like of our messaging now that the clothing has brought in this audience. And yeah, if you're somebody that romanticizes life and wants to kind of engage with people online with that same affinity for beauty and, all of those things, come hang out. Um, and yeah,
Amazing.
that's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll link it all in the show notes as well, everybody. So you'll be able
Yeah.
to find it there. But thank you. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. Bye.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.